Wyoming is known for its geothermal activity. Just mentioning hot springs brings the Yellowstone elephant into the room. But did you know there are other hot springs throughout the Cowboy State? Hello, welcome to the Saratoga Museum Podcast. I'm Museum Director Justin Horn. Join me as we explore the history of southern Wyoming's Platte River Valley, Carbon County, and wider Wyoming. Outside of Yellowstone, hot springs exist in the Tetons and Jackson area. And there are hot springs at Hot Springs State Park near Thermopolis, Wyoming. And in southeast Wyoming, Saratoga is famous for its mineral springs. Like all good adventures, this one begins in the mountains. In this case, the hot springs at Saratoga begin with snowfall in the Snowy Range Mountains. Thousands of years ago, snow fell in the Snowies and melted, seeping in as groundwater. It penetrated thousands of feet. This groundwater became heated by the Earth's mantle. This heated water then finds its way up through faults in the rock, forced upward by the pressure gradient of water continuing to seep in from the mountains. This heated water reemerges as hot springs near the Platte River. Legend tells of how Native Americans, primarily Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho people, used the mineral hot springs at Saratoga for their medicinal powers. The Native Americans viewed the land around the springs as neutral territory where fighting was not allowed. Anglo-Americans began entering the upper Platte River Valley in the middle of the 19th century. Jim Baker, a mountain man and one of the first white men in the valley, initially named the hot springs the Indian Bathtubs. Initially, the hot springs along the upper Platte River Valley were of little interest to white settlers. They believed the flow of water was insufficient for a larger scale resort. Thus, the spring's economic value was limited. However, this view was not held by everyone, and it did not stop some enterprising settlers from trying. In 1884, the town of Warm Springs was renamed to Saratoga. It was hoped that the name change would link, at least in the mind of would-be visitors, the community in Wyoming to the resort town of Saratoga Springs, New York. A gorgeous two-story hotel was constructed on the east bank of the Platte River, built by William Caldwell in 1884 for the sum of $24,000 or $800,000 in 2026. The Hot Springs Hotel welcomed visitors with a lavish grand hall with black walnut staircase. The main floor hosted a parlor, barber shop, office, billiard room, dining hall, and kitchen. Bedrooms upstairs could accommodate 50 guests. An adjoining bathhouse, livery stable, and barn completed the facility. Word soon spread of this, quote, pearl on the Platte and, quote, great new health resort. Sadly, the Hot Springs Hotel burnt to the ground in 1902, despite locals forming a bucket brigade in an attempt to save it. The fire started in an overheated stove in one of the bathhouses, and sadly, the Grand Hotel was never rebuilt, with much smaller bathhouses and guest cottages replacing it. In 1921, the state of Wyoming purchased 440 acres of land near Saratoga. Again, because of the limited water flow from the springs, there was little interest initially in developing the area. But in 1927, Wyoming State Engineer John A. Whitting went and inspected the site. He found the springs had little flow but saw potential. Whitting recommended the state of Wyoming turn the land on the east side of the Platte River into a state park. The state hired S.S. Sharp to begin designing a boulevard-style state park with bathhouses. Sharp collaborated with Wyoming state geologist John G. Marzel, and together they agreed that better drainage and excavation of the springs was needed. In June 1929, work began, and the Saratoga Sun newspaper covered the progress. The Sun reported on June 5, 1929, quote, excavation revealed an estimated 200,000 gallons of hot water per day flowing from the springs, end quote. On June 20th, 1929, the Sun reported, quote, when 3 feet of heavy mud was excavated, a gusher appeared. Water doubled to 500,000 gallons per day. Its temperature was 113 degrees, end quote. And finally, on July 11th, 1929, the Sun proclaimed, quote, the problem now is a great oversupply of water, making concrete work difficult. The spring water has increased to 1 million gallons per day, end quote. A large pump driven by a Fordson tractor could barely keep up with the flow. What to do with so much hot water? After consulting with a Denver architect, workmen dynamited the spring. This cut off the flow, and eventually several of the springs on the east side of the river were capped, regulating the flow to a manageable level. Over on the west side of the Platte River, the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC, began working on improving a spring site that eventually became known as the Hobo Hot Pools. The Hobo Pools were discovered after flooding in 1917 cleared vegetation away, revealing the springs. Little was done with these springs on the west side of the Platte until 1935, when the CCC began its work. By 1936, the CCC had put rock around the springs, forming swimming pools, and the men had added wooden railings and steps. The Saratoga and Encampment Railroad passed right next to the Hobo Pools, and legend tells that hobos riding the rails would jump off the trains as it passed by the pools. They would bathe and get cleaned up before jumping back on the next passing train. Thus, the springs earned the name the Hobo Pools. After World War II, a wooden bathhouse was added, and several bathhouses have been available over the years for swimmers to change in. One local remembers growing up in Saratoga, and that in the tiny bathhouse there was a strong odor, so that the teenagers would go and change outside behind the bathhouse. When the girls were changing, other girls would stand guard, and woe to any boy who thought he might get a peek, as the female guards would come hooping and hollering and chase him off. In the 1950s, the state of Wyoming sold 404 acres of land on the east side of the Platte to Bill Walker to turn it into a private hot springs resort. 16 acres of the land, however, were given by the state to the town of Saratoga. This land included the Hobo Pools and Veterans Island. As part of the transfer, the Hobo Pools and Veterans Island were to remain free and open to the public forever. By 1958, the town of Saratoga constructed a municipal swimming pool next to the Hobo hot tubs, taking advantage of the warm water to fill the pool. By the 1980s, environmental concerns prompted the town of Saratoga to rethink the plumbing situation of the pools. Dumping chlorinated water from the swimming pool into the Platte River was unacceptable. Thus, the municipal swimming pool needed to rework the drainage and have the water flow into the town's wastewater system. The plumbing redesign also incorporated a not-so-hot or kiddies pool at the Hobo Springs. Saratoga Mayor Dave Pennock led the project. Sadly, Pennock was killed in a plane crash in 1983 and is the only mayor of Saratoga to die while in office. In 1998, John Negard volunteered his time and talents to place new stone walls around the Hobo Pools. Today, visitors to the Hobo Hot Springs can enjoy a relaxing soak in the warm water. Just how warm is the water? Well, temperatures vary and it's up to Mother Nature, but the not-so-hot pool is around 105 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. The main pool is around 108 degrees Fahrenheit, 42 Celsius, and the lobster pot lives up to its name at 117 degrees Fahrenheit or 47 Celsius. Think you are tough enough to survive the lobster pot? Well, give it a go. The Hobo Hot Pools are free and open 24/7. And while you're visiting, be sure to stop by the free Saratoga Museum and check out our new exhibit all about the hobo pools. The Saratoga Museum podcast is a production of the Saratoga Historical and Cultural Association. Thank you for listening.